There we go. We on?
And we could just do it the way we normally do it. So just let us know when you're ready to start.
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to Hoops HD. This is our Under the Radar podcast. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, joined off over there by David Griggs and down below us by John Stalika, who is actually in a good mood tonight.
Are you sure it's not championship week yet? Because we're starting at about that same time we would in March.
This is our first championship week video notebook or
something like that. We're coming at you later. In fact, we're probably just going to date it for February 2nd because it'll be past midnight in the East when we get around to posting this anyway. But because of games that were on the radar, we decided to delay the recording of Under the Radar.
Yeah, there was a decent little game tonight between Kansas and
We
Baylor.
won't be talking about it tonight.
Okay. And decent game between Xavier and Seton Hall.
Xavier, Seton Hall, Cincinnati. Really a great night of basketball.
Texas Tech.
Texas,
lots of three overtimes with Indiana and Penn State.
Yeah, lots of overtime games, lots of exciting games. Big night in the ACC. We're not going to be discussing any of that.
What we will be discussing, though, is under the radar teams. And, John, what does it mean to be under the radar?
Well, to be under the radar means you're outside of a major conference like the Power 5 conferences in football, along with the Big East, the Atlantic 10, the American, the Mountain West, and this year the West Coast Conference. It also means that in the cases of potential teams like UNC Wilmington, Middle Tennessee, Illinois State, and Wichita State, that you're not in the top 25 yet.
Right. And we have not had all season, David, actually, any of these under the radar programs in the top 25.
No, we haven't.
The West Coast Conference out of this grouping kind of took way through the teams that are normally there, but we still haven't had anybody break in.
Right, and that is kind of unusual. UNC Wilmington getting very close this past week. I think they got up to 26th and 27th in both polls. We'll get to what happened to them over the weekend. Losing their first conference game and not messing around at all in doing so. But we'll get to that a little later.
Right, and John, the Mountain West did start out not under the radar. We have since moved them under the radar. They got relegated down.
It seems to have been, almost a multi-year process now since they had multiple bids in the NCAA tournament a few years ago.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to do is pull up the screen here. Let's see, there it is. This is the workbook or the standings page that we were using during the Hoops HD report. We can continue using it here in the Under the Radar report. This is the Big South Conference. We like to focus in on one conference each week. And for those of you that missed the Hoops HD report, just want to quickly go through what some of the numbers here, because there's a lot of letters and numbers here. Obviously, the first column is your conference record, your overall record, your record versus D1, your RPI, and your strength of schedule. The next 6 columns here, go back to the Hoops HD report and watch it. We had a real interesting and good discussion about these various metrics. But the red ones are the resume or results-based metrics, such as the KPI, ESPN strength of record, and our colleague Joby's nitty-gritty ratings.
Yep.
And the green ones are the predictive ratings, such as KenPom, the BPI, and the Sagarins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that covers them.
I believe it does.
Some other ratings here that come from KenPom, such as offensive and defensive rating, and the always favorite luck rating as well.
Right.
David, the Big South Conference, we wanted to focus in on it tonight. Winthrop came up with a win over Radford. I believe Asheville won tonight as well. Liberty won last night. Now 3 teams tied at 9-2.
Yeah, so business as usual in the Big South. We've seen this. It's crazy. We've seen this the last 3 or 4 years. In fact, as nuts as this is at the top, 3-9-2 teams, in the past, we've seen as many as 6 and 7 teams in the second half of conference play, which we're on the brink of going into. In fact, the Big South is already into the second half, separated by just 1 or 2 games. So more excitement. And the thing we like about this format this year is that the conference tournament is not at a predetermined site. The first place team, either outright or by tiebreaker, I'm not really sure what all the tiebreakers are, but whoever it is will get to host the conference tournament. And as we said, Chad, what a storyline we have shaping up with 3 teams, one of them Liberty, who was absolutely atrocious out of conference, all log jammed here at the top, fighting for first place and the right to host. This is why the format needs to be what it is, and not at all what it needs to be what it used to be.
Yeah, Liberty won 2 games non-conference against D1 opponents. You see and they were Lowell and Mississippi Valley State, not exactly big-time wins. Since it got to conference play, look at that. Their 2 losses were to the other 2 teams that are tied with them up there, Asheville and Winthrop. But
Yes.
everybody else, they've completely taken care of business on.
Right, and this is kind of surprising, and I know that the Big South isn't really a juggernaut conference, but Liberty appeared to be among the worst teams. We thought coming into the season we would be the worst or among the worst. And then after they got done with out-of-conference play, that sort of confirmed that. But here they are, one of the bigger surprises, not just in the Big South, but in all of under the radar as far as how good they've played.
Yeah,
And the other thing to also point out here is that 2 of their final 3 games are going to be on the road against both Winthrop and Asheville.
Yeah, I was going to note that, John. 2 of the final 3 are those road trips to Winthrop and Asheville. On the other hand, out of the 7 games they have left here, 5 of them – the 8 games they have – no, it is 7 games. 4 out of 7 are at home. So they got a lot of home games left too. So, if they win the rest of those games other than Winthrop and Asheville, they're probably going to be looking at the 3 seed, but they pick up one of those wins and who knows?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and return back to the rest of the conferences. We'd like to go through in alphabetical order here. Actually, David, before we do that, let's put that Big South back up. One other topic we wanted to discuss for tonight, I want to do this with each of the conferences, is where we actually think the champion is going to fall in terms of the seed line. Are they going to be are they going to think it could be a 3 seed, a 4 seed? So, David, where are you with the Big South? 8 line?
Not a 3 or a 4 seed. I'm thinking maybe I'm thinking a 13 or a 14, probably a 14. I don't think if it's Winthrop they'll be any lower than that. Winthrop has the win at Illinois. Illinois probably has a solid NIT team. You're not going to see many teams on the 15 or 16 line with a road win of that caliber. And they're pretty good overall. I mean, 17-5 on the year. If it's them or Asheville, I think it's the 14. And if it's anybody else, I'm thinking 16.
John, you agree with that?
I would say Winthrop or Asheville probably would be capable of a 15, but I think as a puppet noted, anyone else 3 through 10 is likely going to be in the 16. And I would say High Point and below would be candidates for Dayton.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, maybe High Point, if they run the table from here on out, could avoid a Dayton trip, but they would have to get red hot to get up there. I really think, but Winthrop, Asheville, I agree. 14 line might be the top here. I think 13 would probably be a stretch. The America East. David, the team of the people, the New Hampshire Wildcats, led at the half today.
Yes.
What the hell happened at Stony Brook?
The team of the people has 5 losses by 4 points or less, and I believe the team of the people is 16 points away from being 17-4, which is what they should be because they really shouldn't have lost any of those games. And here it is again, had a lead on the road, had a lead in the second half, would have tied them in the standings, and which helps because the conference tournament, again in this league, is determined by seed and conference standings. Losing the last 2 games, oh my God, like in overtime against UMBC and now tonight at Stony Brook, they should have won them both. They were cheated out of it again.
Well, David,
and at what point are you going, is enough?
Well, David, remember way back, the first loss they suffered of the season, this Abilene Christian loss. They were down big in the first half. They came back. They won the second half.
Right.
We were told they still lose the game.
Yeah,
so, the last 2 games, they finally decided to correct that and win and dominate the first half.
Right.
And they're still told that they lose the game. What can we do?
I'm just not happy with the America East.
This is what John Calipari meant when he was talking about moving targets towards the end of the season last year.
I don't know.
Not that many games left. Big one, though, Circle this coming up February 9th. We'll talk about this more a little next week also, but at Vermont.
Yeah. And I'm sure that the America East will screw them out of that as well.
We see here the actual standings, though, John. Vermont now has a 2-game lead opened up on Stony Brook. What seed line are we looking at for the Catamounts here, do you think?
For Vermont, I would say probably 13 would be about where I would have them, although if everything breaks right, they could possibly sneak up to 12.
David, do you think they really have a shot at 12? Let's assume that they don't lose again.
I mean, everything's fluid, and I mean, again, they would probably have to win out, and some things would have to happen around the bubble on the 12th line to where you just didn't have that many, where the bubble is entirely up on the 11 line. It's possible, but I'm thinking 13, which for this conference, this would be the second year in a row it landed on the 13 line. It's normally around the 15 or 16 range, or it had been until recently. So the profile of not just the, Vermont and Stony Brook last year, but I think the whole league has really improved. It went from being one of the 4 or 5 worst leagues to now very, comparable to the better under the radar conferences. And a lot of that is the teams that were dragging the bottom, with the exception of Hartford and Maine, who still are. But Maryland, Baltimore County turning it around. New Hampshire, although they've been getting screwed this year, is much improved. Binghamton's actually not losing every game. The overall quality of play in this conference has improved, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, well, I mean, Hartford really, I thought, had a chance to be a lot better than that this year. Big hit right going into the season when Pancake Thomas transferred out. But other than that, but Maine obviously still dragging things down here. And
right. But UMBC, an incredible turnaround. They're within reach of being the number 2 seed and getting to play the quarters and semis at home.
They are.
I mean, they're 1 game behind Stony Brook, yeah. It's not completely out of reach.
Let's move on to the next conference here. And, John, over in the Atlantic Sun, we have a new team up here in second place that we haven't discussed all season.
The Lipscomb Bison, they were, I think, a team last year that actually finished in 6th place and still managed to get a road win in their conference tournament. So they seem to have built a little bit of momentum coming in from last season.
Yeah, they picked up a big win at Upstate, it actually just swept Upstate 2 of the last 3 games, David, after Upstate got the win over Gulf Coast. So now suddenly Lipscomb is up there. And like John said, Lipscomb part of the craziness that happened in last year's ASUN tournament.
Right. But Lipscomb on a bit of a roll here. You see that 4 of their last 5 conference games have been on the road, and they've won 3 of them. And we haven't really talked about this team much at all, I don't think, Chad, since your Battle of the Boulevard write-ups. Games that they and we really like this Belmont team. I think we're going to get to them later, but Lipscomb was right in both of those games. So is this a case of them maybe being a little better than their record indicated they were out of conference? Because really, really doing well in conference play and just a game behind Gulf Coast.
Right. They've got a game coming up. They're hosting NJIT. Gulf Coast is in Jacksonville coming up this weekend. Next week, Lipscomb and Gulf Coast will play next. I believe it's next Thursday night. So
yeah,
we'll find out that then really. But Gulf Coast still, David, looking like they're the best team in the conference, at least so far. What type of seed line do you look for them on?
I don't think they do a whole lot better than 15. If they win out, maybe. I don't think they will. I think they'll drop at least 1 more. And everybody else, they're nowhere. Profile-wise, nobody else in this conference is close to them. It's 16s across the board if it's not Gulf Coast.
And I agree with that. I don't see Gulf Coast having any real shot at the 14 line. I think 15 is their cap here.
Yeah.
Let's hope they don't fall into the same fate that North Florida did last year for the second half of the year.
The Big Sky Conference, David, let me start with you here. We now have a 2-game lead in the loss column. I mean, they're tied in the win column, but due to some unbalanced scheduling here. But Weber State up 2 games in the loss column now.
Yeah, and again, 9 games in, I think they play – is it 16 or 18 that they play? I forget the
I believe this is an 18-game
column. Okay, so not quite halfway home yet, but fairly comfortable as we're approaching the midway point. Weber State, I like them better than anyone else. I think that they'll win it outright. And they get to talk about how they should be hosting but won't be.
Yeah, they got a pretty easy week this week, hosting Southern Utah and Northern Arizona coming up. Probably the most interesting upcoming game here actually is the Battle of Montana coming up on Saturday between Montana State and Montana there. But John, any shot that the Big Sky avoids Dayton?
Well, they could probably avoid Dayton if there are upsets in other conference tournaments.
Okay, if they avoid Dayton, can they get off the 16 line, or do you think it's question of where do you go in the 16 line?
I still think it's going to be the 16 regardless.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then John, let me stick with you as we move over to not the Big South, which we already discussed, but actually the Big West, where right now we're watching a Big West game as we record this, but UC Irvine's suddenly in second place with a couple losses.
Yeah, and one of the reasons they're in second place is because UC Davis actually knocked them off to get into sole possession of first place.
Yeah, back-to-back losses here at UC Davis after losing at home stunningly, really, to Cal Poly, David.
Yeah, kind of surprising here, and what we thought was the best team in a bad league is maybe not even that. UC Davis, I will say this, as a program, yes, the Big West is having an atrocious year collectively. UC Davis had an atrocious program until about 2 years ago. Jim Les has them all the way turned around, and here they are again in first place despite losing a ton from last year's team.
Right, they did pick up the home win over Irvine. I guess they got the road trip to Irvine to end the season, but they maybe they'll have already captured the conference regular season title by then. David, you could see, for example, our colleague Joby in his nitty-gritty ratings doesn't have a single Big West team in his top 110, which is what you need to even get a
Yeah, he doesn't even have the conference champion in the first place team. So I thought he always.
David, Dayton guaranteed, no matter who wins this.
Most likely, yeah. I mean, UC Davis, you see their RPI there 180. If they can get it up to about 25, they'll avoid Dayton.
About 25. 225 or by 25 points?
No, 25th. Like
25th
the
RPI.
25th best RPI.
Okay, yeah. I don't think that could happen.
Yeah.
It's a shame that UC Santa Barbara has 2 D1 wins because they could possibly be a centenary candidate otherwise this year.
Yeah.
We're going to get to the centenary when we get to the SWAC. We've got some major discussions there. David, we teased this at the start of the show here in the Colonial, UNC Wilmington. What the hell happened?
They got blasted. I don't know if it was just fatigue because I think something happens to a team when game after game after game after game, there isn't so much anything to play for in order of something to be gained, but rather you're just trying not to lose and slip up and trip up. And I think that can almost be kind of hard. But, yeah, William and Mary, I mean, I think they led by as much as 20 for much of the second half. I just remember watching that, waiting for Wilmington to wake up and come back, but they never did. And I guess the question is here, I noticed you or on your bracket on Monday, and you're not trying to guess the committee, it appeared that you still had them inside the bubble. You had them on the 11 line, and you had a first 4 game on the 12 line, so I'm assuming they just made it.
I did have them above the first 4 teams, maybe above one more teams even beyond that. But I'll tell you one thing when I look at William & Mary, you see here that the William & Mary – I'm sorry, when you talk about Wilmington, though, the William & Mary game was – they just played 3 out of 4 on the road. It was the last of that. Yeah. They had actually not looked that great in the James Madison game. Madison was an awful team, hung in there with them most of that game. They've got Charleston coming up tomorrow night here.
Yeah.
Huge game at home.
Classic trap game.
Well, Charleston's right behind them in the standings.
No, the Charleston game's not a trap game. The Bill and Mary game was the trap game, and I think that's,
that's what I meant.
Yeah.
I think it just was. You're not. It's so difficult to win every single game, and that was so perfectly placed in the schedule with a decent William & Mary team, tired team. I think that they bounce back tomorrow night, though.
Right, and we've alluded to this before, the three of us, and I'm anxious, and I'm curious to get your opinion of what I just said. when you play in a multi-bid league, there's showcase games. There's games to get excited about. In an under-the-radar conference, you are the showcase game for the opponent every single night if you're UNC Wilmington, and it isn't, oh, this is an opportunity, oh, this is something to gain. It's trying not to hurt yourself every night. The best you can hope for is to stay as good as you already are. And does that eventually become mentally exhausting?
I think I agree with you. I think it does. I think it exactly does. I think that's what happened there. But on the other hand, the big test is what happens tomorrow night in this game when they're hosting Charleston. Do they bounce back? And if they bounce back and they look the way they've looked earlier in the season, there's nothing to worry about. But John, if they come out flat in this game and they lose at home to Charleston, is it time to hit the panic button?
Well, I think you would hit the panic button as far as at large chances go, but I would say they still have a pretty good shot as far as getting the top seed in the Colonial, because I'm not sure how the tiebreakers would pair out quite yet if they split.
But John, if at that point they would have split and they'd be tied in the standings, and the conference tournament is in Charleston, it's not, I don't think it's looking good at that point. But if you look, David, I still like their power ratings. I mean, all these rankings here are, especially the resume-based ones, are still in it right there in that large bid.
But it's North Charleston, not Charleston.
Yeah.
I would also like to thank the city of North Charleston for following me on Twitter after we pointed that out.
Oh, that's awesome.
Stalika, let me give you Conference USA. We now have a 2-game lead by Middle Tennessee, remaining undefeated in conference. This is clearly an at-large bid team at the moment. Would you agree?
It is an at-large worthy team for Middle Tennessee State, but I think the most noteworthy storyline was just after we went off the air on Thursday night while UAB and Louisiana Tech were playing. There was a bit of a fracas between both teams. What really made this one stand out was the benches cleared, which is not part of typical fight protocol. So what happened was all of Louisiana Tech's bench players were rejected. All but 2 of UAB's bench guys were rejected, and Louisiana Tech had to finish the game 4-on-5 and still outscored UAB by 4 points in the final 6 minutes. Utterly remarkable.
UAB did get that win, but because they were up with that. But David, what a scene! I think it was 4-5. UAB, I think, had 6 players that were left in the game. Tech had 4.
And you had like this, the backup center just sitting on the bench all by himself. He looked so lonely. It was him and Coach Rod Eashan. And then on the La Tech bench, you had absolutely no one because all the assistant coaches got ejected too. Now, what was interesting about this is that it happened going into a timeout. We were actually watching the game as we were recording our bracket show, and they came back from commercial, and we didn't know what was going on. I mean, they showed it took them about 20 minutes to get the replay sorted out, but what both schools kind of phrased the issue was they were leaving the bench for the timeout, so it wasn't as if they left the bench because of the brawl, which is, I guess, technically true but practically false. Should everybody have been ejected or not? I don't know, but it was hilarious that everyone was.
Well, Dave, let me stick with you. Where do you think Middle Tennessee lands at the end of the day?
I have been putting them on my 9 line. I think that's where they belong. I don't think the committee puts them quite that high, 10 or 11. But if this team wins out and somehow slips up in the conference tournament, they have got to be inside the bubble. I mean, you have to select this team. It would be a crime if they didn't. I mean, look at that. Look at their power rankings. Look at their wins. Look at their road wins. And they went on the road and they beat a lot of good, decent teams, not power conference teams, but really good under the radar teams. One of which is Wilmington.
They beat Belmont on the road. We're going to talk about Belmont in a few minutes here. They beat Wilmington. They won at Ole Miss. They beat Murray State. They went
to VCU and barely lost. And a lot of people think VCU is a tournament team.
Are you sure we're talking about Middle Tennessee here and not a vintage Memphis team from their end of Conference USA days?
Profile-wise, I think this team's better than most of what Memphis put up.
John, obviously Middle Tennessee, the hottest team in Conference USA. The second hottest team right here on the screen, winning 4 out of 5. How about Tim Floyd's UTEP Miners and their bounce back here?
Yep, 4 out of 5 indeed, thanks to their road sweep of the F-blank-U schools and also a win against UT San Antonio. And here's the surprise, actually going to Marshall and getting a blowout win.
Got the blowout win, and UTEP, who we were talking about as a centenary candidate, David, next thing we know, they could be in 3rd or 4th place in the conference.
Possibly.
It's been amazing. Actually, I
Question for you here, Chad. Let's see. But yeah, I don't know. Tim Floyd's turning it around, much to the dismay of everyone.
Okay.
We might not want to go there.
Yeah, let's keep going. Let's go on to the Horizon League people.
I asked Chad, well, you have to get the special edition to know what that question
This
was.
special edition that's coming out with that question. But, John, the Horizon League, why'd you talk about it?
I guess while they try to get themselves together, I'd like to comment on who was broadcasting the Valpo and Northern Kentucky game on, I think it was last Thursday night, because it sounded like the Valpo guys were broadcasting from the shower because of all the buzzing going on.
Yeah, that happens. And, on the throwback to the Horizon League network, I remember watching a game where the camera was sideways. So, I don't know, ESPN3, it's gotten a lot better, but it was vintage Horizon League. It was great.
Valpo obviously right away with the league. Huge game actually coming up this weekend. They're at Green Bay, who has been really look like the second best team since Oakland fell apart.
Yeah.
But David, where do you think Valpo lands in terms of the seed line?
Possibly as high as a 12 if they keep running away from it. And do they get – I don't think they land inside the bubble, but maybe they get at least close enough to it to be seriously discussed if they went out and lose in the conference tournament. And 2-game lead going into the final half of conference play, which means they used to get the double bye and home court advantage.
Well, John, their losses at Oregon, at Kentucky, home to Santa Clara, which I still haven't figured out, and the home loss to Oakland. What if they do win out? They got a lot of road games left, including the Milwaukee trip, the Oakland and Detroit trip, and the Northern Kentucky trip.
I think also a lot can be said about what would happen if they were to, let's say, lose early in the Horizon tournament like they did last year, because they've already used up their strikes as far as regular season losses go.
Yeah, David,
I mean, wins against Alabama and BYU, they help a little bit, but
Right.
as does the Rhode Island game.
Yeah, David, that's the good point there is that any loss you suffer in the Horizon League tournament will be a bad loss. And
Right, I agree.
Can they really sustain another one? I don't think they can.
No, but I do think they can get as high as the 12 line if they win out. Everybody else is not on the 12 line or the 13 or maybe not even the 14.
John, the Ivy League finally gets underway with their full regular play this weekend. Princeton sitting here at 3-0 after it was Harvard that suffered the upset loss this past week.
Yep, I was about to comment here. Is that me, or are we finally seeing 9 full games of highlighted Ivy League games?
It's not even 8. It's not even the normal 8. There's 9 because, and I'll get back to that in a second, but the big upset was Harvard going to Columbia and losing by 3 points.
Jim Engel's magic.
Magic. And they struggled at Cornell also, so I'm not that certain I'm sold on this Harvard team as much as I thought I had been.
Neither am I, and I keep thinking that the 4 we see on top there are the 4 that are going to kind of break away and end up in the conference tournament. Penn will be hosting it. They will most likely not be playing in it.
Oh, I still think Yale is probably going to be the likely second-place team behind Princeton.
Well, I mentioned that we said there are 9 games actually, because coming up on Tuesday night is the Princeton-Penn game that used to have been played during championship week actually, but with the Ivy League conference tournament, they moved this game up in the season. That's why we have that extra game this week.
Yeah, and I realized, was this always a bookend game? I knew it was always the last game, but was it always like what the A-Sun does? They open and close? Okay.
Well, for Penn and Princeton, it was actually for all the other travel partners. They would play both travel partner games at the start of the season.
Yeah.
So very often you see, like, for example, you see Columbia and Cornell play their first 2 games of the season against one another. But
And that's also why Princeton and Penn have an odd number of games each, while everyone else has 4 games under their belts.
yeah,
Yeah.
by next week, that'll be cleared up to even numbers across the board. But John, where do you see Princeton landing in the seed lines?
Well, right now I would probably have them at the 15 line, but depending on what happens in other conferences, I'd say their best case scenario would probably be a 14. Princeton did play a decent non-conference schedule, but not really enough wins to really get them much higher.
David, I'm going to pull up their other breakdown page here. This is a good way, another way to look at them. Nothing really in the top 150 other than a win at Bucknell.
Yeah, and I like this Bucknell team. I will, when we get to them, I think they could get as high as a 14, but I think the 14 is the absolute ceiling for the Ivy. It just feels like a 15-seeded league.
Okay. Let's
And you do get a lot of crossover games between the Patriot and the Ivy leagues.
Right. Here's a conference, John, that I think has a shot to get higher than that 15 line, maybe a lot higher with this Monmouth
Yeah.
team.
Yep, because right now I would probably see Monmouth as a 13 seed because, as we said during the December and January podcast, it's too late for them to really get to an at-large or above the bubble, but still with a healthy 2-game lead in the Metro Atlantic and a 8-game winning streak. They seem to be on quite a run right now.
Yeah, David, actually, very interesting week coming up for Monmouth. Their 2 conference losses, Rider and St. Peter's,
Right.
2 revenge games this week.
Yeah, I was just about to comment on that. And they're entering or in the middle of a stretch where they're playing 4 out of 6 on the road. So big couple weeks here for Monmouth. And if they win out, which I think they're good enough to do, although how many times have we said that and it hasn't happened? Yeah, I think they can get up to the 12, and they might actually be close enough to the bubble where the committee looks at them. I don't think they take them, but I like this Monmouth team. I think their ceiling's high. It's frustrating because they don't always play up to it, but they're capable of beating good teams. And not to keep harping on it, because I said, but when it happened, I said all year long we'll be harping on this. Where are they if they get that win at South Carolina?
Right. Just want to throw it out there. Justin Robinson this week became Monmouth's all-time leading scorer as well, so congratulations to him.
Yeah.
Really would love to see him get that tournament bid this year.
And the second place team, I don't think St. Peter's is going to keep up. A couple of storylines here. Siena playing much better since conference play started. You wonder what the hell was going on prior to conference play. But not just this season, but as a program, how about Iona? And I know that we love to pick on Tim Cluse. In fact, there's nothing I like more, so it kills me to say this, but he's done a fantastic job coaching this team this year, considering like the rebuilding that they had to do.
I agree. I did not expect Iona to be up here in the top of the standings, and really, you look at their profile, they are the second best team in the conference.
Yeah.
Yep, and even Joby in his nitty-gritty rankings have acknowledged Iona as part of his top 110.
Yeah, at least you could, because if any team has a number here in this JNG column, they at least are at least worth a half a second to talk about.
Right.
Another team that has a very good Joby nitty-gritty rating here is Akron, who is completely running away with the Mid-American at this point. 9-0, undefeated. John, Akron, where are you looking at them to fall?
Well, even though they were tested against Northern Illinois last night, they were able to survive that midterm. But right now, I could actually see them at a 12 at the moment. But if they were to, run the table, they probably could be above the first 4.
All right, David, let's ask the next question then. If they run the table to the conference title game and fall there, now show this profile without any top 100 wins, any chance that the committee would take them? They've got some in that 101 to 150 and only the one bad loss.
Yeah, there's a chance.
Well, I guess it would be 2 bad losses if they lost in the conference final. That would be
right. Possibly. I think that there's a chance. I'll certainly be pushing for them on our mock committee if that happens. Yeah, I think there is. Is it a better than 50% chance? I don't know. I think it could go either way, but they would have a strong case. Now, in the past, more often than not, the committee would not select a team like that. But we've seen teams without. I think Siena years back, and I realized that it was a completely different committee, landed on the 9 line with only 3 top 100 wins and no top 80 wins. And the year Davidson made their run, again, a completely different committee with Steph Curry, they had no top 100 wins but were on the 10 line. So there is some precedent to see a team inside the bubble. Now, neither of those teams needed the automatic bid or needed the at-large bid either, but based on when you're a 9 or a 10 seed, you're pretty confident you would have gotten it had you needed it. So, yes, there's a chance. There is.
And you look here, they're getting votes in both of the coaches and the AP poll.
Yeah.
Suddenly in the West Division here, Ball State is suddenly, we haven't discussed it all this year, suddenly moved into first place. They actually have their one and only matchup with Akron coming up on Tuesday as well. So
yeah,
may want to circle that one as the next big test for Akron, although it is at home.
Yeah, them and Northern Illinois, both good stories this year because of the drastic turnarounds their programs have undergone in the last couple of years.
John, the MEAC. Again, where's the JN Joby nitty-gritty ratings? We're just not there.
Well, again, we don't have the nitty-gritty rankings for centenary candidates here.
Yeah, but John, obviously North Carolina Central, even though half a game behind Morgan State, has the best ratings across the board, only team with the winning record. Can they avoid Dayton?
I would say not.
David, you agree?
North Carolina Central? Yeah, I think they can. I mean, because 15-6 overall, I don't think they're going to be any higher than a 16 live, but I think they can avoid Dayton if they run through the conference with only one loss.
Let's move over, David. Stick with you here to the Missouri Valley, where both Illinois State and Wichita State struggled the last couple of games, although they keep winning.
Yeah, they do, and you look at the power rankings there. They're at least if you look at the predictive rankings, Wichita State's way inside the bubble, but they're both hovering around it, but not looking the part at all, like you said. Northern or Illinois State had to sweat out Northern Iowa tonight. Now, Northern Iowa's been playing much better the last couple weeks, but still, you would expect Illinois State to not sweat at home. And Wichita going to Drake and almost losing today.
Yeah, I mean, Illinois State did hold Northern Iowa to a very low point until you look at there. They actually have the number 9 defense in the country.
Yeah.
But John, we got round 2 coming up on Saturday.
Yep, there's only 2 key upcoming games, but one of them is probably what the puppet would call a spotlight game in his daily write-up.
It is, because it's bubble-licious, and the winner of that game, I think, is inside the bubble.
All right. Well, we're going to have some debates, I'm sure, from here on out, especially if both these teams keep winning against everybody else, as to whether or not this is a 2-bid Valley. The Valley's going to get 2 teams in or not. But the question, I guess, is what type of seed line are they going to get? So, John, let me start with you. Where are you looking at for these 2 teams, Illinois State, Wichita State?
I would say if Illinois State comes out victorious, I would probably say their absolute ceiling would be either a 10 or a 9. But I still think Wichita State, even though this is not official criteria, but they'll probably get a little more of the benefit of the doubt. I would probably say their ceiling could be a 9 or an 8.
I don't think either team can reach an 8, David. Would you?
No, I'm thinking 10 or 11 at the highest, probably 11. But I do think that it's possible they both get in.
I agree with that, especially when you look at these predictive ratings that the NCAA had a meeting on. They're starting to try to look at them more. And Wichita States are just 18 in the nation in Sagarin. It's we discussed that on Monday night also. They were a big comparison school when we were discussing.
And if you look at Wichita's rankings right here, if they win this game, it's possible we could be saying goodbye to them next week and be bumped up to the regular Hoops HD report.
Right. Wichita not all that high in the DGRA right now, which isn't on your screen, but
The DGRA, yeah, we don't have those ratings. David, who is number one in the DGRA right now?
it's I'd have to go back and look. I want to say it's Nebraska.
Not New Hampshire.
New Hampshire's way up there.
Actually, before we go there to the Northeast, sorry, with Mountain West first. Mountain West Conference relegated down. We were
Right.
just every time I keep thinking, you know what? Maybe Nevada could be an at-large team. They went and lost by 20 points to Utah State tonight.
Yeah, and you know, oh no.
Days like this, I wish we still had the soundboard from Google Hangouts because this would definitely merit the stat horn.
Yeah, it's been an exciting league. You almost wish that it was under the radar to the extent that the tournament was not at a predetermined site because, holy crap, look at the top five. They're all separated by just one game in the loss column anyway. And it's been highly competitive, highly entertaining, but it's all for one bid. And
Now
it's
the
whoever
top-
wins the automatic.
No, the top five. The team number 6 is, according to the predictive ratings, the second best team in the conference, San Diego State. So I think you got 6 teams easily that can win this conference tournament here.
Right. Well, that's a case study for how the predictive rankings make crappy predictions.
Salika, do you think we're looking at 12 seed or or 13? Where do you think we're at?
I think the ship has sailed for 12 and even 13. I'm starting to wonder about with parity killing the Mountain West this year.
I think if it's Boise or Nevada, I think they get in the 13 line, David, even if their ratings are a little bit lower, maybe just because of the words Mountain West.
Because the other question, go ahead.
Oh, maybe so, but I'm thinking 13 or 14. No higher than that, and really no lower than that, unless it's someone like San Jose State or Air Force or somebody like that.
Say 10 and 10, a great season by their standards.
Right. Oh, it is. It really is.
Now, my other question was, is it going to be this year or is it going to be starting next year where just the top 8 seeds advance to the Mountain West tournament?
Actually, that's not going to happen. They'd announced at the end of last season, they announced that starting this year, it was going to be an 8-team only conference tournament. And about 2 weeks later, they retracted that, and they're sticking with the full 11 teams. So it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Northeast Conference, John, let me start off with you here, where Mount St. Mary's not only 9-1, but they've now beaten both Fairleigh Dickinson and Long Island Brooklyn head-to-head. Their one loss was to Bryant, who they actually have their rematch with coming up tomorrow night.
Yep, and unlike one of the other leaders, also managed to not get upset by Central Connecticut State of all teams.
Yes, very rough week for Long Island Brooklyn.
I was going to say, that was probably CCSU's most significant win since the Kyle Vanalis curse that Lee Del Vecchio would probably bring up.
Yeah, at CCSU, actually with a shot, you got to make the top 8 in this conference to make the conference tournament. They're right there in the battles for the 8th spot. St. Francis Brooklyn, very disappointing down there in 10th place also, David.
Yeah, and this is a team that's been a conference front runner in recent years, and here they are in the basement. But one of the things we love about this league is its campus sites for the conference tournament, and it's the top 8 teams. And look at that storyline, because the bottom 4 are separated by just one game. So you have these stakes games. It feels like every game in this conference is a rivalry game and a stakes game, and it's just so much fun.
And you're going to have battles here for that 4th. I mean, if you're the 4th versus 5th spot battle,
Right,
is a home game.
it is.
Quarterfinals.
Yeah.
It's a huge battle.
Right.
16 line,
Yes.
probably
Yes.
to Dayton.
Yes.
Ohio Valley Conference, another team that's undefeated in conference play. Belmont, just playing some great basketball lately.
Yeah, just running roughshod over this entire league, and so much so that it's hard for me to say for certain how good they really are. It's clear that they're better than everyone else in a bad league by quite a bit, because not only are they winning, they're not even sweating. But, they had the loss at Middle Tennessee. That was rather decisive. They went to Florida, did not look good in that game. It turns out Florida's pretty good, but That game was in Tampa. I'm sorry, but it was still like favored Florida, the crowd. And then I actually didn't watch that Rhode Island game. I don't think, or
Yeah,
not
but
much of
they,
it.
they have not lost to a bad. All the teams they've lost
Yeah,
to are tournament or bubble teams at least.
yeah.
And
Except Vanderbilt. I mean,
well,
Well,
except
even Vanderbilt
yeah.
is up to 500 now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they didn't really compete in those losses the way that you thought that they might, but they've been blowing everyone out, so they've really kicked it into gear.
John,
And
I was going to just ask John where he thinks that we're looking at for a seed in this conference.
I was going to say Belmont's ceiling is probably going to be a 13 if they're able to run the table and also get the double. Because I think, as Chad alluded to earlier, if Belmont loses in Nashville during the conference tournament, they're done.
oh yeah,
Yeah, I don't think they're an at-large bid team, but David, if they actually win every single game, including the conference tournament, do you think they got a shot to toe the 12 line here?
they have a shot, but I think it's a 13. Now that is
here
a
we go.
potential
Look at
live
all this
wire.
green here.
Yep, that's a lot of green.
And I mean, they are going to have to beat Trevecca and Nazarene on February 21st. So that could
be... they should be demoted to seed line just for scheduling that game. This is a live wire 13 seed if they run the table. I mean, and who knows what they can do. If you're a 4 seed, do you want to see this team? You're supposed to be protected from at-large caliber teams. I don't know if that's going to happen.
The Patriot League, David, let me stick with you here. Bucknell is, again, we're shocked here, really, that any team is going to run away with this conference, but it seems like it's happening. Now, we do have some great battles going on, games we played at conference sites, so again, like that 4 versus 5 battle.
Right.
Good battle down the way, but Bucknell running away with it.
Yeah, they are, and we're 11 games in. It's an 18-game schedule. They got a 2-game lead, I think, with 7 games to go, so they win 5 more, they got it. And look at who they got coming up. These are winnable games. The game at Lehigh should be pretty good, but I think I can look at that and see 5 likely wins in that stretch.
John, where do you think that Bucknell ends up?
I could say they could probably end up as a 14 at the rate they're going right now. I mean, there have been years past where they have actually finished above the bubble, but this is not going to be one of those years.
And I agree with you exactly. I think this is a solid 14 seed, maybe has a shot to toe the 13 line if a lot of things fall their way, and there's a lot of upsets in conference tournaments.
And one of the things I love about this league is that we're going to see if everything holds serve, which it may or may not. Navy hosting a quarterfinal game and a possible semifinal game on the roof.
Yes.
You love the roof.
Love the roof.
Love the roof, yes.
Funny, I always thought of Navy as more of a ground floor type place.
Yeah.
That can be tough to put the Navy up on the roof. I mean, those ships don't go very well.
No, I mean, that's something else. There, those two tied, and that's a fun battle because
David, tomorrow night, Navy will be on the roof.
All right. Big game there, and this is why I love conferences that format their tournaments this way, because that's for second place. That's a chance to host a semifinal game.
John, the SoCon. We had a crazy night the other night when the top 4 teams were squaring off at each other. At the end of the day, it was East Tennessee State and Furman that came out the 2 winners.
Yep, because Greensboro had 2 losses, one of which was to Furman, and I forget if it was Chattanooga or East Tennessee State, but the Buccaneers actually, I think, got this round as far as beating Chattanooga goes.
Yeah,
so that's one of the reasons why they're one of the
bad week for Chattanooga. VMI lost, East Tennessee.
But I can't make a case for Furman like I did for Greensboro a while back.
I'll tell you, Furman, red hot team, tied for first here. They've got 2 winnable road games at Mercer and Citadel coming up this week. David, they've won 4 straight, including at Greensboro and home against East Tennessee.
Yeah. Red hot here. They got Chattanooga coming in, and Chattanooga is one of those teams that really is capable of playing well but doesn't always do it. And last week was a week where they didn't. But that's a big one there. But again, it's all for naught. I wish – look at the storyline we would have if this conference didn't do it at a predetermined site.
They play the games in Asheville, North Carolina, not that far from East Tennessee State, quite honestly, who looks like they could end up being the 1 seed.
And tonight's useless trivia, if for whatever reason Furman is able to win the SoCon, they would not be able to play in Greenville as they are hosting there this year.
Okay.
Good point there. Good point. David, let's assume it's probably East Tennessee State, who looks like they have the best ratings across the board right now. What seed line are they ending up on?
They feel like a 14. I mean, they just – I'm saying I think a 14.
I think this conference had been looking like a 13 seed for a while, but with Chattanooga falling apart, I think that's right. I think you're right on. Southland Conference, things are finally getting up there. Sam Houston State starts 0-2 in conference play, 7 straight now to move into first. And look who's lurking, not half a game behind, but a game behind, the Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks.
Brother.
And tomorrow night, the big game, the biggest rivalry in the Southland, round 1 of it, David.
Yeah, something happened tonight. New Orleans had been in first place, and they'd been the team we had been projecting in. They lost to Abilene Christian, who's not just a transitional team, but the last place team in the league tonight.
Back-to-back losses now for the Privateers.
Yeah, back-to-back. And Abilene Christian, they actually had to come back, and it looks like they almost won following the score there. But New Orleans, interesting story. They began the transition down due to lack of funding, decided not to complete the transition. It was kind of fun to see them do well this year, and they're still doing well. But I think they're losing their grip. I mean, they're right in there now, but I think Sam Houston's going to ultimately run away with it.
And, John, what seed line does the luckiest team in the nation end up in?
If we're talking about Sam Houston State, I would probably say their absolute best scenario would be 15, but even that's assuming a couple upsets during championship week.
No, I think they're solid on the 15 line, even without the upsets. There's so many other conferences we've already discussed as 16 seeds. I would have them a line above it, the rest, probably.
Yeah. They've got a much better –
not solidly on the 15, but on the 15.
Right. Their chances of being a 16 are a lot greater than a 14, though.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. 16.
Speaking of 16 seed, SWAC.
Yeah.
But 16 seed, we already said that, even if it's Texas Southern. But let's take a look down here at the bottom. This is amazing numbers here. Alabama A&M, despite having a win, not only a win, but a road win over Mississippi Valley State, 351 RPI, 351 strength of schedule, which you probably don't see, 352 KPI.
Which is how? Because there's only 351 teams.
Yeah, but he had an extra spot in. That's how bad they are. All 3 predictive ratings of 351. Now, ESPN strength of record number 346. David, I did a little further research into it. There's actually a 5 or 6-way tie for 346. So they are tied for dead last. They're just not dead last. Right.
Even after winning a game that Texas Southern couldn't manage.
Well, it looks like they have a slightly better tempo than they do offense. And on top of that, they're one of the most unlucky teams.
Unlucky. Only the top 8 teams even make the SWAC tournament this year. So,
come on!
If they can finish out the regular season without another win,
they're going to get.
Despite North Carolina A&T being winless, it'll actually be an interesting debate if North Carolina A&T does not pick up a win.
I kind of hate that we've never had, at least that I recall, a sub 300 team in the tournament. There was a year where the SWAC became very close. Was it Prairie View? Was 301, and they missed a last-second layoff that would have sent them to the NCAA.
I believe that was 2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, and I was devastated.
Of course, that win would probably put them over 300. But
well, yeah.
John, the Summit League, North Dakota State Huge
losing
upset
tonight. Good
Lost
grief.
at IUPUI. It was a good overtime game, another
Yeah.
overtime game tonight, but still 2 games up on the rest of the conference.
Yep, and this is where parity seems to be killing their seed chances here because North Dakota State probably would have been tenuous even as a 14, but right now I could probably see them hovering between 14 and 15.
And
I
I
agree
with
with that. Yeah.
I think we all agree with that. They've got the South Dakota schools, both of them, in this week after tonight's bad loss. Sun Belt Conference. John, let me stick with you for a second here.
My goodness.
What a race we have here. You look at these conference standings, 5 teams within a game of each other.
Yep, 3 of the teams were actually on the road Monday night, and Georgia Southern lost before tens of people at Troy. And then Texas Arlington also fell on the road. I think it was Coastal Carolina, but Arkansas State was the lone team that managed to get the win, and now they get the 3-way tie with not just Georgia Southern, but also Georgia State, who also quietly got a win on the road themselves at South Alabama.
Yeah, Georgia State, Ron Hunter's team there. Cliff Ellis's Coastal Carolina team who beat Arlington right there. And David, we've not discussed this team at all this year. Texas State suddenly in the race as well.
Right in there. Kind of coming out of nowhere to get there.
One at
Little
Coastal
bit of a
and
run here. Winning 4 of their last 5. Now, not really against the top of the conference, but if they're still up there after this week, Little Rock, kind of disappointing this year. We got off to a good start, but Arlington and Arkansas State and Georgia Southern and Georgia State. So if they're still up there after their next 4 or 5 games, then I kind of think that it's just that they haven't played those teams yet.
All right. In terms of the seed line, David, where are you at? With assuming it's either Arkansas State, maybe it's Arlington. I don't even know who it's going to be.
I'm thinking 13, if it's one of those two, unless the league continues to beat up on each other and they add more losses to their profile and knock it down. But to me, it looks similar to the Little Rock team that got a 13 last year.
I'm kind of more on the 14 line, John. I think that the 13 line is a stretch here.
Well, I mean, Arkansas State has the win at Georgetown, which is looking better and better.
I mean, the quality of these teams would probably suggest 13, but again, just too much parity in the Sun Belt to really warrant that kind of a seed.
Yeah, and here's that Arkansas State profile. Georgetown, Chattanooga wins, but you got these ugly losses down here.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and bring up the last conference for the evening, the Western Athletic Conference. New Mexico State still undefeated in conference play, 21-2 overall, second longest winning streak behind Gonzaga in the entire nation, David, and nobody is talking about them.
Well, I am.
Okay, nobody but you is talking about them.
Right. Like this team. Now, again, all they've really done, they're really high in the DGRA, by the way. They're actually in the field.
Well, if you look at the resume numbers, I mean, Kyle Lamb told us if you're in the 50s, you're in ratings, he prefers the predictives, but then you're on the bubble.
Predictive's not quite as good. But again, they go to the bakery. They just haven't really played anybody that's even an NIT caliber team. I would say possibly New Mexico, but I'm watching New Mexico sweat out UNLV right now. I don't think the committee will be impressed by this resume. They typically aren't. Like, there's no top 100 wins, and then there's 3 top 200 wins. A lot of the teams that you see seeded well, like the examples I gave before, had a lot of at least good wins between 100 and 200. This team really doesn't.
Well, John, we know that David has New Mexico State in his top 5 in the DGRAs, and so he'd have them as a 1 or a 2 seed. But where do you think really the committee is going to do with this team?
New Mexico State, I would probably say, is going to be around 13.
I don't know. Now, they gave Stephen F. Austin a 12 1 year with a profile that was very similar to this.
And I agree with you, David, because I don't think they get at-large bid, because if they lose to anybody in the conference tournament, it's a
Right.
bad loss. It's a sub
Yeah.
100 loss, and maybe even a sub 200 loss. Uh,
Right.
so, but without one more bad loss here, if they win every single game, they finish 14-0 in conference, and they win their 2 games in the conference tournament. I could see that 12 line. I really can.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It may not be an inside the bubble 12 line, but it's 12 line.
Yeah.
Um, let me go ahead and pull this down here for a second. And the last step we have to do today is go over our under the radar top 10 lists. And Dave, what is our top 10 under the radar top 10 lists?
It's the best team. It's the 10 best teams that are not in power conferences or in the top 25 or in multi-bid leagues.
Okay. Well, here is the list. And
Yeah,
February
good.
1st, 2017, good list. And I'm going to start revealing it here. And John, the number 1 team under the radar top 10, team that actually, despite not in the top 25, despite not having legitimately lost a game all year, of course, the New Hampshire Wildcats.
Oh, right. Good pick. Good pick.
We seem to have lost John there, David, so I'll go through these with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to take your word for it.
We lost your video at least. We're trying to get that back.
Right.
Number 2.
Right. Middle Tennessee. Yes.
Now I'm getting the screen share.
There we go.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's just crazy that New Hampshire cranked number 1 this week.
Yeah,
but when you haven't lost a game legitimately, you belong up there.
Exactly.
Right.
Behind Middle Tennessee is UNC Wilmington.
Yes.
We all still did agree that I think this was unanimous here. Middle Tennessee number 1, UNC Wilmington number 2, or
Yes.
whatever.
But I still believe.
Illinois State, the leaders of the Missouri Valley Conference, came in at 4th. I was a little bit tied. I was tempted, actually, quite honestly, David, to rank Wichita State above them. But I didn't, but I was tempted there.
Yeah, well, we'll see after this weekend. I mean, I was too when I was watching Illinois State, but then I turned on Wichita, and my temptation went away.
Okay. John, Akron coming in at number 5, running away with the Mid-American Conference, which is a rarity. We rarely see anybody run away with that league. And
yeah, I mean, if you look at how they've done, I guess, compared to what Wichita has done, I mean, Wichita has only the 1 loss against Illinois State as far as conference play goes. But then again, no one's going to be able to test Akron like Illinois State has been tested so far.
Well, Akron does still have, and while Kent State's not that good, they have not played Kent State yet this year. They got to play them twice still, and that is the big rivalry, probably the top rivalry in the conference. And you wonder if Kent State might steal one from them. New Mexico State coming in at number 6, 7. Valpo coming in, leaders of the horizon. Monmouth coming in there towards the end, bottom of the top 10. And the Vermont finally breaking into our top 10 as well, David.
Yeah, and I like this Vermont team. They've looked really impressive in the America East. It's their conference to lose.
And we actually had a last-minute change of the top 10 list. Nevada was actually in the top 10 as a result of what happened tonight.
Belmont, my
Belmont
team.
Bruins. Right. David, you and I voted for them. John, you didn't even have them on your list. What's wrong with you?
What was wrong with me? I mean, I thought about it, but I think I ended up giving Arkansas State a bit of a bone after getting back into the lead in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, Arkansas State and Nevada both did receive votes. And, John, you gave an honorable mention as well to East Tennessee State. Not in your top 10. But
to be fair to Nevada, I gave them a dishonorable mention for what they did at Utah State.
Right. And we haven't been – I don't know if we've ever really been tracking this, but I don't think we've ever had a number 1 team miss the NCAA tournament. And for that matter, most of the time the number 1 team is right on the bubble or oftentimes in it. So New Hampshire, if you do like a correlation study, right on pace to make the field.
Well, because they have not lost the game by legitimate means all season.
Correct.
On that note, let me go to each of you for any final thoughts. John, let me start with you.
Well, seeing as how it's Groundhog Day, I don't want to be committing any copyright violations by playing the obligatory Pennsylvania polka, so we'll just have to do that off the air.
No, let's not do that at all.
No, John, you're not allowed to play music at all anymore.
Yeah.
We've been through this a few times. David, any thoughts?
Yes, again, 5 losses by 4 points or less. It's been an unbelievably frustrating year, but I still believe the ceiling is just as high now as it was at the beginning of the year. New Hampshire is going dancing.
New Hampshire is going dancing.
They are.
The only other people that are going to be dancing is our good friends down in El Paso who are going to be dancing to some Pink Floyd music, one of our favorite Pink Floyd albums. But on that note, on behalf of John Stalika and David Griggs, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you again real soon.